Right, I'm sitting here with Jamie Strange, List MP for Hamilton, and also the candidate for Hamilton East for Labor. Sitting in your office is actually, I think this is the first one of these I've done in an office, not outside the camp.
Yeah.
But and it's quite nice in here.
Nice.
But now normally I ask, why should we vote for you? But I think it's more relevant to look at the broader thing of what's Labor's plan, assuming they get back in, right? What's Labor's plan for this next 3 years, considering what we've now got to deal with? And this encompasses everything, because this whole COVID thing has affected everything. It affects how we look at everything from health availability, education. Everything's affected, because now we've got to be prepared for potentially, if something happens again, doing education predominantly from home. We've got to look at how we're going to deal with mass amounts of people needing health care all of a sudden, because this virus, this pandemic, has hopefully educated us a bit. The balance between lockdown for health's sake while trying to keep the economy functioning reasonably well, so the least number of people are negatively affected by it. So what can you tell me the future of New Zealanders under a Labour government coming up?
Yeah, so look, I mean, certainly we are in a COVID context, and that's likely to continue for at least another 12 months, possibly longer. Obviously, it all depends on the availability of finding a vaccine, or developing a vaccine, and then obviously rolling it out around the world, and what that looks like, and many discussions around that as well. So look, we've done really well as a country in terms of the lockdown. We basically eliminated COVID, and then unfortunately it crept back in.
Sneaky little bugger it is.
Yeah, exactly. It only takes one, and then obviously we're in that state of managing it. And for the past, I believe, 12 days, we've been free in the community, and we've been capturing it at the border. Now we will continue to manage that health aspect of it. So that's one part of it. Is that if people appreciate the leadership that Jacinda's given us, and that that the Ministry of Health and the government have been doing on the health response, then that's something for them to think about as they obviously go to the booth. The second part of it, and you touched on it quite well, Lee, is around the economy. So look, I mean, we are expecting some job losses. We've already seen a few. Hasn't been as bad as some initial forecasts, but we are expecting some job losses over the next couple of years, really, depending on how long this thing plays out. And so the key thing there, is for the government to support the economic recovery. And we're doing that in a few ways. I'll just sort of touch on them briefly, but one is around trades training. So people transitioning into other jobs, particularly in the trades sector. There's lots of construction jobs out there. We need to build a lot of houses. There are lots of houses short, particularly locally.
So that's your plumbers, your builders, and your electricians that are going to be needed over the next little while.
And then your general construction workers in terms of some of the high-rise stuff. And it's an opportunity for people to transition from one job into another, and moving into basically a trades-based job, which for many people will be a higher income for them. It will be a skill that that they can have with them for their life, and it'll create opportunity for them. They can start their own business.
Also, there's those people that are at that stage of deciding where their future's going. Are they going to university? Are they going to go into a trade? I know in the past there has been a lack of emphasis on the trades. So you get those people who have definitely decided they're going to become a builder or a plumber or whatever, and then you get those people who are not sure what they're going to do and end up going to university and doing something along those lines, which they find isn't helpful for them 6 years down the track.
That's right.
And if this is signalled far enough ahead that yes, we are going to be needing tradespeople, an increase in tradespeople over the next quite a few years, and it's going to be a long term, so people can actually aim at it as a future. Then it makes it a bit easier for those people who are deciding between university or polytech or apprenticeship or whatever to actually go, I can now go and become a plumber like I wanted to, or whatever, and know that that's going to be relatively secure for the next half dozen to a dozen years easy, because we're going to be needing a constant addition of housing effectively.
Oh, certainly.
We're not shrinking. It's not like New Zealand's shrinking.
No. New Zealand's a very desirable country, and we certainly are growing. If you look at our region, we've got one of the fastest growing regions in New Zealand. Hamilton will likely be the second biggest city in New Zealand in sort of 30 to 50 years.
Well, I noticed during last year's council elections, when I looked at the figures, I got quite a surprise, because I never really noticed this, that between 87 when I came to Hamilton and last year when the elections were held, Hamilton had tripled in size.
Wow, yeah.
And I almost didn't believe the figures of what our current population was. I went back and looked at what population was back then. And I'm going, I had to check it a couple of times to make sure I had the right figure for 87. And that's what, I'm not even going to work that out, but quite a few years, yes, but it didn't feel like we've tripled in size. But then there's some parts of Hamilton that you do notice it at times, especially before Wairere Drive came into existence, and all that. There were areas that you did notice our population just because it was congested.
But you can get around the city, pretty easily. Which is and that's
even easier if you're on a bike.
Exactly, on a bike, using public transport. So that's the thing, as we grow, it's about having good transport networks. Right across the city and also across the region, and in terms of connecting some of those smaller towns to Hamilton as well. And we've got
the inland port coming.
That's a huge project.
So it's going to be a lot of people going from Hamilton to there to work, because it's so close.
Well, there's going to be housing included in that port project.
Oh, that's cool.
So that gives people the opportunity to buy a house right there at the port and walk to work, or bike to work. So that's part of that too.
Thinking about Hamilton in general, but especially Hamilton East, what things in Labour's plans are going to positively affect Hamilton East and Hamilton in general coming up? Because you get Hamilton East candidates, so I live in Hamilton East, so we might as well focus a bit on Hamilton East.
I know for sure. Like you mentioned the port project, the Ruakura project, and hot off the press, it was just announced today that the government and council are putting support with Tainui Group holding into that project. Now that's a project on the eastern side. It just, if people haven't seen it, just borders the eastern side of Hamilton, really from Silverdale in the south up to Thomas Road in the north, right across to the expressway. So it's an area the size of Auckland CBD.
Isn't that big?
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. And
so that's going to tip our population a little bit that way. 500
hectares. And so you're going to have a fully operational inland port, and then you're going to have and then you're going to have about 450 odd hectares of industrial and commercial buildings and housing. So significant growth. The key thing I mentioned there is around transport, and this idea of Hamilton being a 20-minute city, to be able to get anywhere you want in 20 minutes. And so, there's work being done around cycling and public transport and walking. So we're not just as car dependent.
Yeah. I've noticed that with most of the new developments, especially out Road to Turnaway and all that sort of area. I notice a lot of the roads are being built to cater better for cyclists. And that sort of thing. I've noticed. I've ridden around a few of the new bits, and it's quite funny riding around roads that are just about in the countryside. There's not much up there, and you're riding around all these empty sections, and
that's right.
but you can see that compared to the older parts of Hamilton, it's quite different to get around.
Yes. Yeah, we have been very car dependent. There's another aspect as well around health. And particularly around the mental health aspect. So, so we started 2 years ago, starting to roll out a plan, whereby when anyone goes to a GP and the GP recognises there's some mental health challenges, they will literally walk them down the corridor to a mental health nurse at their GP clinic.
Okay.
And then they'll be able to have those conversations and get that support right there and then. So that's what we're rolling out across the country, including Hamilton, everywhere.
That's progress.
Yeah, it is, and it's due to be rolled out over the next sort of probably 3 to 4 years. We need to train the people, of course, because currently what happens is someone goes to a GP and they recognise there's some mental health challenges, give them a piece of paper, send them away, tell them to contact the hospital or something, and nothing ever seems to come of it.
Yeah, because the one thing we tend to forget is that mental health is one of the things that people don't talk about very much.
Yes, right.
And as soon as you tell someone you're having mental health issues, their way of interacting with you changes, almost like they're afraid to catch a disease. Unfortunately, that's a bit of human nature, and of course that isolates the person who's already having a problem from other people quite often, because I think people still need to learn how to support those with mental illnesses, because that covers a very broad spectrum from mild issues to the extreme end. Most people think of the extreme end, but they forget that there's a lot of people with levels of anxiety about different things that just by understanding them you can help them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like COVID. There'd be certain people who discovered things about themselves that they didn't realise in the past because you've been able to mask it by not being stuck at home or not having to think about losing your job or not having to worry about finances and things like this, not being stuck inside with the kids all day.
Well, that's exactly.
The kids are alright for 2 weeks of the year when they're on holiday, but the rest of the time they're at school.
Look, I mean, I'm very pleased that it's something we are talking about.
Cool.
Because at the end of the day, we're a community of people. We're not. I mean, to a certain extent we're individuals, but we're all connected. And so, working together, understanding and supporting each other. That's what life's about.
Do you think that's something all of us need to think about a bit more? Is functioning as a community, not just as individuals? Because I know with the elections it tends to divide people into various camps. And people get quite strong about other parties because they need to justify their support for one party and all this sort of carry on. When, if you look at it, I could go to look at just about any political party and pull out something from every party that I think is actually a good idea, right? And it's more a case of, and this is what people voting should be thinking about, is which party covers you to the greatest degree of how you want our government to be run and our country to be organised, and which things are most important, because sometimes you might have to choose a party and sacrifice one issue because something else is more important. It might be, I don't know, more money spent on health and like the mental health issue, for instance. That might be important to you, and how things are being dealt with, either environment or employment issues, might have to take a bit of a back seat a little bit. And the other thing people, I think, need to realise is you are going to be forming a government, if you get back in, you are going to be forming a government with another party. The likelihood of Labour or National getting 61% of the seats is so rare, it would be a weird concept at the moment. So you're going to be forming a government with another party. and I think they need to look at what party works best with Labour.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and I'm not going to tell people what party I think works best with Labour. That's up to people to make their own decision. But yeah, and you're so far with the two you've been working with for the last 3 years. Things seem to have gone relatively smooth.
Yeah.
No one's decided to throw the toys out of the pot and storm off. You know?
Oh no, look, I mean, it's been a very stable government. But I mean, like, we've had stable governments in New Zealand for many years, of all colour.
Yeah.
And we've had good prime ministers. And look, we've, we are a pretty desirable country. I mean, lots of people would love to come and live in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Because they realise that, we're good people here. We have good stable government. We have good rule of law. So you're able to do business here, and conduct yourself safely and well. So look, I mean, I just encourage everyone to get out and vote. Regardless of which party you vote for, please
get
vote.
out and vote.
And obviously look at the party you vote for, and people will choose that, and then look at the candidate and say, well, that might be different sometimes. It might be that certain party has the values, but this candidate is someone who I think is very active for our community. Is doing a good job. Lobbying for investment or out there doing community work that you appreciate. So doesn't always have to be the same. So that's another one.
I think, and I do like the concept of MMP, and I will never put 2 ticks for one party. Because of just what you said. I'm looking for a particular type of person for my MP and my electorate, and I'm looking for certain type of party to form a government, right? And I can't see that 2 ticks for one party is the ideal situation for that, because I do like the concept of, nothing against Labour, but I do like the concept that Labour's got to sit at the table and discuss the issues with another party and come to an agreement, rather than just saying, this is what we're going to do. It means that we get a fairer system, because you get input from someone else who's got a slightly different angle on it. But oh well, good luck in the election, and thanks very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Have fun. And
thanks to the listeners.
might see you at a few soccer matches during summer, maybe.
I might even get the boots out myself.
Oh, we'll have to do that.